see if there's anything out in the woods, see if there's anything that looks, repeated, be it behavior, be it blind type, or, something on the ground, Kana, Kanji, trail language, etc. Just scouting a new region. And the reason why I decided to go scout the new region is because there wasn't much activity where I have been going and recording voices and sounds. I'm going to re-scout those areas probably on Christmas. Hopefully, I'll be secluded up there in that respect. But anyway, there were some sounds that I've, over the course of this last summer, fall, and beginning of this winter, heard in the eastern hillsides. Coyote sounds, which are kind of close to town, and heard some other bizarre, like calls of some sort, almost like, and then also had several words spoken from that area. I think it might have been the Rojan, because it's very deep sounding, and it's the same Guape Kiaka. Guape Kiaka, the Tagalog Filipino says you have a pretty head, or you're handsome. I heard that a couple of times over this past summer and beginning of this fall, and just like last week in that eastern hillside. So I decided to go investigate it today to see if there was any sign up there, anything that might suggest there's Sabe in the area or some other kind of critter in the area. Found a couple of footprints. Found one really good structure that looks like it's a potential. Found what looks like one jungle gym, potentially, and a few other just kind of low sit spots. So I think I will be doing more investigating in that area, but I think I want to go up because there's a lot of crisscross, that zigzag trailing like gorillas make all over that area, but it's all older. And I didn't see anything that was, really, really recent. Maybe a couple of weeks old is the most recent I saw down where I was. So I'm kind of wondering, since the other hiking trails that I've been going on are to the west of this particular hill, if there might be more activity either on the top or on the other western slope. So those are going to be avenues I check next, but didn't get any like major tapping or whoops or calls or anything. So if there is anything over there, it's not passing through regularly. But there was a bizarre, very bizarre time anomaly issue over there. Ah, I'm really good at not getting lost in the woods. Hi, how you doing? Hey, Queen. Uh, hello, Monkey Lord. So there was a bizarre time anomaly of some sort going on. It's kind of impressed me as similar to the vortex in southern Oregon, because I've been there as a tourist. Things look bigger on one side of the vortex and smaller on the other. Things appear to go uphill, which they do. They're not just appearing to go uphill. So there's some magnetic issues potentially over in this new area. Because not only did I get turned around, I could still tell where north was, but the land didn't lay right, for where I'd come in, where I looped to go back out. So that was peculiar. The other odd thing that I had happen on the first recording that I was making walking in, I had recorded to about 3 minutes, 36 seconds, and looked at my phone. It was right where I was at a fork where I could go downhill or go further uphill. I walked another maybe 100 feet, and all of a sudden my phone was at 12 on the record. Walked another 40 feet up the hill, and I was at like 10:16 for my record. Never had my record do that before on my phone. I've had that happen with some of my cameras in the past when I was up in Washington doing research and walking around. But this is the first time I've had it happen in this area with my phone. So either there was some relay issues, which I severely doubt, because your camera does not work off of the internet, and I wasn't broadcasting. And there is reception up there, because I got a message while I was recording. So that was very peculiar. Don't know why. And the other recordings I didn't have any issue with. They recorded normally and kept a regular time pace. It was just that one that acted very strangely. So maybe it's just a glitch in my phone. But with with the fact that I got turned around, yeah, that's bizarre. And the fact that it just seemed so much like the vortex area. The overall feel of it was, I wouldn't say eerie, but peculiar. Uh, Whatever. I'll have to go back up and do some more scouting. But I did find, like I said, one really nice structure, and the tree that's it's built around doesn't have any breakage in the top. The one next to it does, but the structure itself is actually made of, like, looks like three different wood types. So there's madrona mixed with pine mixed with alder to make the structure up. So that's very suggestive that stuff's been brought there. And it was more uphill as I was trying to, approach the top of the southern hill. That's where I found that structure. And then below and to the east, northeast, is where I found a few old tracks. So something's been passing through there. Pretty sure it's not a bear, because the track's way too big for a bear. It was probably 16 inches by about 8 inches across. Old. It's in white pine needle litter on the ground, but you could see the very angular toe shape. So big toe, and then the little toes go down. That's very reminiscent of Jin Jin's track. Her toes were very angled when she wasn't wearing her boots, and her foot would widen out and flatten out when she didn't have her little leather boots on. When she had her leather boots on, she had a very, very narrow, funny looking, long track that was only about 2 inches across because her feet were really malleable. So I think there might be Oma up there if the track is any indication. And there was one juvenile track, old, probably a month or so old, with the toe splayed out, looked like it maybe slipped. And then there was a few little, I don't know, maybe slip tracks or maybe they were water washed down. I don't think they were water washed down though because there was slippage in them. So something else in that area slipped, pretty good size, overlaid tracks, didn't see any claw marks. So I'm not sure if it was a handprint or double footprint or what. I didn't really take a lot of time to look at it because I don't when I'm first walking in. I just kind of get a feel for the area, take a look to see if there's anything that's potential, and then see how often I find, downfall that might be potential sit spots. And I did find a couple of older sit spots that were just off the side of the path. A couple of big rump prints, a couple of smaller ones, and potentially a baby sit. So, and that was real close to the weird, like time shift I had in my phone. So there might be something up there. But I wanted to scout it because of the peculiar sounds that occasionally I hear from that side at night. Because that Rojan thing, I've heard it in 3 different locations now. To the hills to the east, in the hills to the southeast, and in the hills to the southwest. So overall, it's traveling about 5 miles back and forth through that area if all of those sounds come from the same critter. But because it's saying the same sentence, I'm pretty sure it's the same critter, and the voice is always really deep. And it sounds, it'll also make a funny bellow sound, all almost cowish, but not cowish, not mooish, but, really kind of weird sounding of something I can't quite explain. I'd really like to be able to catch it on recording at night, but it's always so far away, I don't know if my phone would even pick it up. I'd maybe need a bullseye mic or something. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of intel on that. I'll be posting those recordings later. I think there's a 3-minute, a 9 or a 10-minute, and a 12, 13-minute long piece. And it's nothing major, just walking through the woods, just trying to look at the area and give my opinion. But, maybe it'll go into something better. Because I think I'd really like to mess with that area this summer. I know it's going to be overgrown. Oh my God, it's going to get so... even with the leaves off of it currently, there's still so much cover in that area, it's not even funny. So, summertime, it might be really active, especially since it's on a leeward side of hills. It's cooler. So, in the summertime, you'll find more activity on the cooler sides of hills. In wintertime, you'll find more activity on the southern and western sides, which are the warmer sides of hilltops and ridgelines. At least that's been my experience over the years when it comes to, indigenous living people in the hillsides. Let me back up, see if there are any questions. Hey, Monkey Lord, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you, Queen. Yeah, doing good. Rick, quick. We don't have much time. What's your best life advice? Never stop going forward, Rick. Don't let anything ever stop you from moving forward. That's my best advice. Queen, don't tell her to say that. Stop being mean. Oh, no, no. It's the dictionary. I don't know what it means. You're funny, Monkey Lord. All right, Finn, you found a nickel in your belly button. Hey, good, you're rich. Mob, Grandma, how, uh, how was it in 72? You pray for this gin, don't you? Yeah, I pray you wake up. And 72, let's see, I was like, hanging out with Jen Jen. I was playing with a Bigfoot when I was that age. What were you doing? Hey, World Bigfoot Central, how you doing? So yeah, I was just doing a little bit about the walkthrough today. New Scout. No, I don't take a lot of time when I'm doing it. Yeah, you're gonna be really quick. Any of the little stop points, are just if I noticed something on the ground, I pointed it out and then moved on. So I didn't focus in on it. You're going to have to pause and take a look for yourselves. But I wanted to show the terrain because there's a lot of cover up there. It's got a pretty thick forest and it's got multiple different trees in the area. And I think the top of that hillside is sitting at about 1,200 feet, if I remember right. Maybe 1,290. So it's going to be 300 feet higher up than the area I'm currently, doing my sound recordings in. So we'll see as the year progresses, as we go into the new year. I might go do some more scouting over there as the ground starts getting more solid because it's really wet and slippery up there right now. And there's a lot of off trail dirt biking goes on up there. So some of the trails are kind of cut up, which is fine. I like those kind of trails because you get out in the woods more and you're not restricted as much to the tourist route, as it were. So if there are any questions, go for it. Otherwise, I'll probably just keep this rather short. Just want to try to walk you through that. Like I said, Wednesday I'll probably do another show, and I'll probably do something up there where I've been doing sound recordings. But it looks like that area, they go through most Bigfoot areas that I've been in, go through kind of like cyclic periods. Uh, Around the full moon, you get a lot of activity. As the moon starts to wane out and it gets darker in the month, then the activity reduces in those areas. So we're just past the full moon. That's probably why all the hunting stuff was going on up there. Why they had all of the ground, trail talk on the ground. It was probably because prime time to hunt. That's the other thing. These people live cyclically with nature. So their activities change throughout the month. They'll hunt more during a full moon, where they won't do so during a new moon. But you end up with running into other things during the new moon. You'll end up with stuff like dogmen in areas you don't expect them to be in, or other cryptids that you may not want to encounter. And they're usually moving through other cryptid areas, so that always gets fun. Oh, wow. World of Bigfoot Central, 1972 is when you had your first encounter. Awesome. Hey, Wavy. How you doing tonight? uh, Kyla, stepmom's advice for moms who are on drugs. I'm sorry you're on drugs. Be careful with that. It's not good for you. So, some background on why I do what I do, the way I do it. One, my grandmother, my mother, on my native side, we always, whenever we go to any new area, it was always looking. The first thing in, always look. Even driving through an area, I always look what kind of structures are in the area. Half the time, my mother would choose a campsite by what kind of structure was on the side of the road. She'd say, "Oh no, that's not safe. We can't stay with those people. We stay in that area, we might have problems. But you go up the road, find more tent-like structure off the side of the road. So, oh no, no, this is Deer Society area. We can camp here. Or be guanch here." So, native way of understanding the world. The same thing as what we did when we were just migrating and going from one end of our hunting grounds to the other. Some tribes had massive areas, thousands of acres that they would hunt. And you would always kind of judge where you were going to camp by the kinds of structures that you saw and the kinds of evidence that you saw or what you heard, and what you traditionally knew about an area. Because if you traditionally knew from your grandparents, hey, there are Gugway in this area or there are Redbone people in this area, you don't camp there. You avoid that area. You go away from it. Because those people, those cryptids are dangerous. They'll eat you. They'll capture you. They'll hunt you. So this is all old knowledge that, mostly has been lost. So, uh, I'm just trying to reintroduce people to some of the old lore, some of the old knowledge, and, give it back. And, maybe give it back to some of the native people. Because some of it's still very familiar with native people. They still understand some of this stuff. Like the trail talk is still something that hunters use, traditional hunters still use. And, people who've been on a turnout. Some tribes still have turnout, some don't. Some do it a different way these days. Okay, Voice of Freedom. Is there 10 minutes before the rest of her? That makes no sense. Might want to make that into complete thought there, Freedom. Gugway or not snuggly. Yeah, no kidding, World Bigfoot of Central. Yeah, no. Gugway are nasty. The one on our ranch was pretty hellacious. And it's, it was very subtle in its behaviors for the most part. It stayed very well hidden. But its cunning nature, its overall look, the fact that it looked so human was the creepiest thing about it, actually. I mean, though it looked like more or less a big gorilla with claws in the rest of its body, its face was way too human. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention to y'all, all of the, different Sabe, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call them, the cryptids, they all have whites to their eyes. They don't have, black-white like primates. They have whites to their eyes. Their irises may be anywhere from like blue, brown, green, hazel-colored, some of them, but they have whites to their eyes. So far, genetically, there's only been, I think, one chimpanzee born a few years ago in San Jose Zoo, I want to say. It's got green eyes and whites to its eyes, but it's an abnormality. It's a 1 in a million kind of, you know, genetic throw. And it's, as far as I know, the only one recorded in captivity or in the wild that's got whites to its eyes. So, uh, somewhere in the between there and the genetics, these things maybe exist. But they all have whites. Even the Gugway had whites, which I got to see that thing at 4 foot. So I'm very aware of what it looked like. Okay, World Bigfoot Central got trail cam video of Gugway from northern BC on my last show. Very disturbing. Yeah, their behaviors are really not cool either. I mean, they'll imprison you. They'll hold you captive. They'll mistreat you. They'll abuse you. They'll beat you, strangle you. They're an aggressive species. And the old stories say, both the sun-faced people and the Gugway did some very, very mean things to people when they catch women in particular. Like, there are stories about sun-faced people holding native women captive and mating with them and having children with them and then, ripping the child apart in front of them after it was born and eating it. So there is some really nasty behavior from some of these cryptids, and that's why I think the public needs to be warned about some of them. Because if you knew something like that was in a particular area, and you knew, I stay a mile away from it, that's safe distance, and you were aware of what it looked like and how it acted, you would probably not take your wife and kids down that path to go have lunch. You'd probably find a different location. And also, if you're in an area where it's been posted that, these things are not harmful, they're curious, they're gonna, interact with you, but be wary, you got a better chance of having a good relationship with some of them. So the fact that we don't acknowledge something that was known just 200 years ago, that we have lost contact with the records. The Native American Iroquois Nation still has a full list of all of these lost tribes, and many of what we call Bigfoot are part of those tribal lists. They are just lost tribes of native indigenous people. Yes, they look different than us, but if you go back through science, science says we at one time looked very different than we do now. If we go with the whole Darwinism thing, that we originated from monkeys, then at one time we were hair-covered, archaic human beings, just like potentially what the Sabe Bigfoot are, and what the Redbone people are. And to look at them as some sort of a mythic creature, you're selling yourself short. It means you aren't thinking about the topic. You aren't looking at history. You aren't looking at any kind of native lore about them. You think that's all fairy tales and myth. Well, Native Americans don't have those kinds of fairy tales and myths. We told stories about what we knew in our environment, what we understood about the things in our environment. All indigenous people actually do. It's not the archaic man or indigenous man that has a problem with reality. It's modern man. It's people who live in cities that never go out in the woods, don't know anything about the woods, that never had to live in the woods or wanted to live in the woods. They got their safe bubble and that's where life is. Well, sorry, they also go through your towns. These things don't care. I've seen sign in the middle of freaking London. I've seen sign in the middle of Washington's, Seattle area, downtown, for Christ's sake. If you find signage, where you've got ground sign, Kana laid out on the freaking concrete, then they go through your town. That or they're living somewhere in your town and you're completely unaware of it. Besides, you can't assume that because we built a house there that something else didn't live there before we did. That's foolish. And think that we can shoot them all off. There are billions of acres on this planet that are not inhabited by any human being other than them. And we actually don't outnumber them in any way, shape, or form. We occupy, what, 11% or 14% of the entire planet's crust? We've knocked out a chip for, where we grow our food and how we live, compared to 85% of the world, 89% of it being open land. The scale don't balance there, guys. Oh, Cleo, it is 7:52 here. It's Pacific Standard Time. Okay, World Bigfoot Central. Uh, Tsuli Tulkulu say the organized hunting parties to exterminate Gugwe in their area. Yeah, there are actually some efforts in that regard and have been within the Native and Indigenous people because they are so dangerous to us. They're cannibalistic. They'll steal your children and eat them. Yay! That's something that we natives knew, and that was a danger when the Gugwe came onto the property. Jen, that was the first thing she warned. She said, don't get too close to it. It might steal you. It might eat you. And, you know, for an Oma Bigfoot woman to say that while sitting next to something like that, I mean, she knew exactly what was sitting in front of her, and she knew how dangerous it was. And she was willing to warn me about it. We even tried to warn the other kid on the property about it, and she didn't take our advice. She could get really close to it. It was very peculiar. I actually asked Jen about that one day. Her answer basically was the two of them were the same. That's why they were able to associate with each other. And then when the other little girl went home, I asked, well, what's going to happen to her? And Jen explained, well, once the Gugwe manages to kill me, comes after your family, it will probably steal her out her bedroom window and take her with him and still eat her. I'm like, wow, that's really scary, Jen. So, you know, there's the dynamics of understanding their culture too, because these creatures understand each other's culture. They know the behavior of other cryptids. They're aware of it. Uh, they're just indigenous people living with other indigenous people like we were. And so, you know, maybe modern man can't get, but it's a really simple concept. You know, you got one mass, and you've got like areas that are divided up. You know, regions that are taken over by particular tribes, and inside those tribal areas, you've got little bubbles of other clans and bands that all belong to that tribe, and they all border each other. Well, these indigenous people still live that way. They still live by the land lay, they still live by territory, and they don't care if you're in their territory. They are not going to move. They're not going to change their ways. That's the way they've lived for thousands of years, if not longer. Us intruding on them isn't going to habituate them. They don't care. They've got their own trading system. If you can manage to break into their trading system and get them to trade with you, it's part of what I'm working on, is trying to get them to trade with me in some instances, trying to get them to communicate in some way. Because if trade or communication can occur, then some research can actually be done because you'll have locked down some sort of habitual behavior that you can interact with them through, which would actually give you an avenue for observation, potentially. That is, if you can get them to come to you during the day. Good luck. Takes a long time. You have to be really dedicated. You've got to be in their territory 8 to 12 hours a day for months at a time before they get comfortable enough with you to show themselves to you, for instance. You can go in and out. You can mess around, you know, a couple times a week. You may or may not get lucky. You might get to see one, you may not. But if you go in and you're habitually in their territories, it makes a vastly measurable difference in their actions and reactions around you. Hey, Gray Man, go ahead with what you gotta say. World Bigfoot Central Gugwe recently started a war with the Tsukulu by ambushing a pregnant female, killed her, and extracted the baby inside her, and impaled her on a tree branch. Yeah, it sounds like Gugwe. Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah, those things. Okay, World Bigfoot Central. Uh, this resulted in over 40 Gugway in the area getting their heads torn off in the last 10 months. The Tutukul called in other scarier cryptids allies to help them in this endeavor. Yeah, I don't doubt it. Uh, I've I've heard that occur at distance. Um, when I was down in the yurt in Douglas County, near where the Dogman was, just the hills south and no, excuse me, north and west of me had some other kind of cryptid family group on it. I think they were Bigfoot of some type. I never got to see them. I'd hear them a lot because they like to scream in the hillsides quite a bit at night, and I'd hear them once or twice a week. Now, it was one night I definitely heard something not cool happening because at first I was awoken uh, by a child screaming, and I heard coyotes attacking, so it sounded like the kid was getting attacked by the coyotes. And then I heard this blood curdling woman scream and crashing. I heard, and I was maybe half a mile away, three-quarters of a mile away from that hillside. So, yeah, in a nice foggy night like it was, the sound carried really good. So I heard, crashing through the brush. It sounded like she was taking down trees. I heard her get to the child, wail out again, screaming, child still screaming. And then I another bigger creature coming down from the other hilltop, the top of the hilltop, because she came in from the south heading north, and the other sounded like it was crashing from the north to the south to the location where the kid was. And then the next thing I hear is both of them roaring and screaming, and dogs getting freaking ripped apart, sounded like, because you'd hear a yip and a yelp and a whoa, no more sound out of that dog. Oh, it was on private property. There was no way for me to get up there to investigate, but it sounded like all hell broke loose, and probably they killed 12 or 15 coyotes that night. And they called for reinforcements. They called. There was a scream that they made that, uh, from where I was at, I could hear two or three other creatures, probably one of them being the dogman, running to their aid when they knocked out the call for help. So there's also the fact that cousin groups will support each other if there's some sort of dangerous situation going on. More intergroup communication and ways that they rely on each other to back each other up in times of need. And it's an immediate response. There's no sending you a letter, I'll be there tomorrow. Mm-mm. No, once the call is put out, whatever's in the area that has an alliance with them will respond. Period. End of sentence. Even when the Skookum here were having problems about a month ago, there were dogmen that came. I I could hear the call, pop, 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 waiting for them to respond, and then hearing crashing and hearing dog howls, and I mean freaking big howls. So, the groups that they're allied with will support each other, will back each other up, and will come to each other's aid during times of stress or conflict. So that's something that you're not going to see out of other primates. You only see that kind of behavior out of human beings. We're the only ones that come to each other's aid, typically. Unless it's, mother to an offspring, that's pretty common. But for groups to do that, there aren't species of animals that do that together. One species of animal is not going to come and assist another species of animal. It just doesn't happen, typically. It's a rare event if it does. But their behavior, like us, is very similar, so they will come to each other's aid. Hey, Mr. Hanson, how you doing? So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that this area is not a deer society area. Like I said, the only one jungle gym found up there, so it's just probably a family group or two up there. The other hillside just south of me, that definitely has a bunch of deer society kind of equipment, so to speak, trees that are bent and you know leaned to facilitate what's going on there. So I think whatever's in the eastern hills are just probably a family group or two over there. And they might be a group that traverses or maybe has route through on some of the trading trails. But there's not a lot of current sign over there. It looks like it's all older. And then further west of here on the lowlands, uh, that area is all more or less flooded now. So that's all down in the Dogman area, down the grass seed people area, and they aren't moving around a whole lot as far as I can tell. At least not down in their home turf because you can't really track underwater, at least not easily. You got to have your muckers on, your waders, which I don't have a pair, so I'm not going to go screw around with that area right now. I'll stay up in the mountains where things are close and easy to get to, and I can uh, utilize some of the what I hear at night to kind of guide me into what local hillside might be the most opportune the following day or so. Because that's kind of what I'm doing at this point, just listening to what area has sounds at night and then going and exploring the following day. It's been able to give me the best results so far. That's how I've been able to get some of the vocalization recordings, words and that funny gurgly sound. I've got to go back over into that region. I think I might do that this week. See if there's any other sounds over there that I might be able to catch. I'll probably do another, walk through and just record like I did today. Keep my voice low so that whatever might be going on in the background can be heard. Because that area is pretty tight and windy, and I don't think I've recorded anything at more than about 50, 60 feet. I think everything had to have been pretty close to me to come out as clear as it was. And then some of the other things I wanted to say when you're looking for their like hunting areas, if you're looking to find where they're hunting, you look for the deer trails. You start looking for the structures and sit spots that are under structures, and you'll find that every 40 to about 80 feet, depending on the land lay, you're going to find a structure. And they'll usually have connector pathways, or they will be line of sight and they will come in from different directions. So when you're getting into like the hunting foraging areas, you're going to find a lot of sits. A lot of sit spots, just little bubbles off the side of the trail, and a lot of structural sits or up underneath the bushes sits where they just, brace stuff up and crawl up underneath things for cover. That is going to be your most common factor other than the snap sticks that let you know they're getting disturbed. But you're going to find a ton of sits, and then they're going to be everywhere, and they're going to be line of sight. If you crawl inside a sit and you start looking around, you'll find other sits that you can visually see from the sit that you're in, especially if it's on a hillside. It's how I sometimes go to find other sits, is I'll get myself into a nice structure that I know has good advantage, and then I'll observe through the, little holes that are easily provided, like windows. See what I see out the window. Hey, Mod's house is over there. So you can actually utilize their sits to find their other locations. But you have to crawl inside of them, and you have to look around at what you can see from inside the sit. Also, pay attention to what it covers you from. Typically, if it's anywhere where there are people trails, one side or maybe two will have a bit more coverage. That's going to be the visual perspective that you can see them from on the trail. But be aware, most of these sits are used at night. They're not day sits. They're when they're out foraging at night for game. So, you got to keep in mind that Yes, you're going to find some stuff during the day, but you're also going to have, hunters doing their thing at night. And that's the other reason why I don't go out and holler and stuff. If I'm out hunting and I'm trying to get dinner for my family, last thing I want is some moron screaming in my woods and chasing off my game. That'd piss me off. That'd give me a bad way to interact with you. So keep in mind that if you're doing any night research, yeah, don't scare their game off. You'll probably piss them off if you do, and you'll get stuff thrown at you or worse. You might get them up on you, getting aggressive-ish with you or roaring at you. So keep that in mind. Because some of them really don't like us in their territories. And depending on what you are and how you act, you might get some really big rocks thrown at you. Okay, let me go back up. Oh, thank you, Autumn Moon. Yeah, face eaters, they're horrible. They like to eat you alive, literally. At least that's what the old stories claim. Okay, I think, okay. Autumn, moon-looking elk. How sad they did that to the female and her baby. Yeah, World Bigfoot. Yeah, no kidding. That is, yeah, Gugway are really nasty creatures to be around. Okay, World of Bigfoot, Yepper. They have dogmen that hang around with them occasionally. Oh, lovely. I wonder if those are the bigger green-eyed dogmen. Because there aren't too many dogmen in this area that like to hang around Gugway. But I don't know about the great big guys. Most of our dogmen in this valley are 6 to 8 foot in height. But the bigger ones, they go over 10 feet, they're really violent. And they're very aggressive. They live higher up, from what I can tell. They range up in the 1,200-foot level. The other guys are 500 and, ground level. And I don't know what the behavior is like and who they might hang out with, what the bigger dogmen might hang out with. But they're really not fun to be around. They growl at you a lot. They come at you a lot. And I know that all of the better off minded Sabe in the area will almost invariably warn you out of an area where those bigger dogmen are here. They'll power knock at you and make you leave. Oh, thank you, Autumn. Yeah, don't forget to hit that like button. Hey, Ben, how you doing tonight? It was exciting to find video image of Quanch individual on your earlier Sally on Hilltop. Yes, I'm so glad that you pointed that out. I wasn't sure I'd caught a good enough image, but I really want to get into that area when they're there enough that I can get some better recordings of them. But it seems like they have like a cycle right before the full moon. 10 days or so right before the full moon, they seem to get pretty active up there. And the young ones have a tendency to move around me pretty good. And they get pretty talkative. And then, 3-4 days during the full moon, they're pretty much all business. And then right after the full moon, it goes silent again. So I'm going to have to go up and do some more walkthroughs and see, establish their pattern. Make sure I am at the right place at the right time to get some interactions, hopefully. And maybe I can catch some more footage that way and some more sounds from the other gully as well. Because everything is always pattern cyclic. They move through their territories just like we would move through ours. Hey, Alice. Seems the exterior troll party are here now, huh? Yeah, that happens. GG, someone just stole my pet and said if I don't pay me $2,000, they're gonna throw him off a cliff. Yikes. Autumn, Awisa, make me a mod. And mod, the 3 dots by your name on the right. I don't have 3 dots on my right, is the problem. Huh. Maybe that'll help. World Bigfoot. Oh, Autumn. You're just mad because my mom is fine as hell and you're... Oh gosh. Gigi, grow up. World Bigfoot Channel, Central. You don't need to make calls to them. They already know you're there. Yeah, that's very true. They do. They watch you walk in the woods. They pretty much know everything you do the minute you get into their forest. So yeah, you don't really have to do anything except pay attention to what they're doing. Mermaid, thank you so much for all of this information. Yeah, you're welcome. Simon. Yeah, whatever. World Bigfoot Central. Not hang around Gugway. Dogman hanging around. With the Tsuluku. Okay. You see guys help the Tsuluku exterminate Gugway. Oh, awesome. I'm gonna have to look up Tsuluku because I only know of them as an indigenous people group, like a tribe. Wasn't aware they were a cryptid tribe. I'll have to look that up. Alright, Tsuluku. Okay. Okay, yes, you did it, love, when you're on the walks experience. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Yeah, you're welcome, Autumn. Okay, World Bigfoot Central, 2 big boys, warrior dogmen, problem eliminators, 12 to 15 feet tall. Yeah, and some of these guys get really freaking huge. Hollows, do the 3-toed sloths still exist, or were they really driven to extinction by the Spanish? Well, I don't know. The reason why I don't know that is because I don't know exactly what the 3-toed sloths look like. I know what the Gigantopithecus was supposed to have looked like. And the one thing that I've seen in my life and been described to me in my life that we know as a spider sloth doesn't quite fit the description. It's really too thin in its body and too gangly in its limbs. I'd have to know more about them to give any kind of an honest opinion about it. Giant ground sloth, okay. World Bigfoot Central, giant ground sloth may still be around. Descriptions of them and Marangapi. Yeah, Mapingari. Yeah, I know about the Mapingari. My father told about those things in the Philippines. Our military ran across them, of all things, during World War II. Yeah, you're welcome, Autumn Moon. Have fun. Oh, okay. The Tsuluku are in Louisiana and nearby areas. Awesome. I'll have to look them up. Okay, Ben. Uh, here's still photo of a gugway came up on my feed again, so I had another look. I think it. I think I missed the face the first time. Looks very human and skinny. Yeah, they're very. They're way more human looking. The gugway are way more human looking than the other cryptids that I've ran across, with the exception of maybe the skookum. Because the skookum female and the boy that my mom and I were around, uh, and the father, because I got to see the dad of the boy more than once. I kept bugging him. I kept asking him questions, and he's the one of the first people I'd seen make a food roll where they put animals on, pieces of bark and then roll them into like a suitcase to carry off. Um, they looked very, very human in the face. So they looked very European, actually. Real short noses, real round features, very human looking, uh, personable. And the female, she had hazel colored eyes, and I think the boy did too, but the father had brown eyes. And then the Gugway, and their skin was grayish, lighter grayish. The Gugway skin though is charcoal, like dark charcoal, almost slate gray black. So the pigmentation is very different in the Gugway. And the other peculiar thing here in the Northwest that the natives speak of as part of the description of the Gugway, other than the bald head, some of them have very, very red mouths. And it's a pigmentation. They have lips and they've got red mouths. I've got the one picture from the one across the river. Then he looks like he's got a red mouth. And it's the only picture I've got of a Gugway like that. And I really need a better picture. But that guy likes to come to that particular section of that river pretty regularly. So it's just a matter of having a good camera to set up and wait for him to come down. Because he's very attracted to people parking on the opposite side of the river. He'll come down to investigate and he'll swim across the river sometimes. Scary. I usually pull away. It's also why, if I'm down in the bedrock in that area, I always take a friend with me because once I hear that thing splash in the water, I don't know where the heck it's going. And so I always want somebody up above me because there's a lot of crenellation in the rocks there. If I'm down below and don't have somebody to keep eyes up above, God only knows where the thing could come in through because he knows those areas better than I do. So I don't want to take any chances trying to get footage of that thing. And then on the what'd you call the, let's see, it'd be the northeast-ish side of that river. There's evidence of other, cryptids. There's a lot of grass trailing through bamboo patches and stuff all along that bedrock area. I've gotten oofed at, I've gotten knocked at, and you can't see more than about 15 feet inside those things. So I've got to do some more exploration there, but they seem to be very defensive against, and they warn against the Gugway coming across the river. So I'm pretty sure I'm safe with those guys. I'm pretty sure they'll warn me about him. Oh, Ben. Must be crayfish in that stretch of the river. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's quite a few crayfish all through Oregon rivers. The further up you get, height-wise, the more crayfish you get. You get up 12, 15, 1,600 feet, and you're going to find crayfish everywhere. Even out in the coastal range, there's crayfish. It seems to be, little crawdads everywhere, man. Lakes have them, even the flats out here in the estuary area, there's a ton of crayfish out there. Little ponds will be just stocked full of them. The ponds out where I used to work, that location, the little video of the crayfish coming up, getting all territorial. Yeah, there's a ton of crayfish in those areas, so I would assume it's a really easy dietary food source because it's so plentiful and because they breed, so prolifically, and they'll even, hibernate and breed Like out in the estuary areas and the areas where it dries up over winter, they'll just burrow in and lay their eggs and do their thing. And once water starts to accumulate, they'll come back out of the ground. So there's a ton of that going on out in the estuary areas. So crayfish seem to be multitudes. They're freaking everywhere. They're like lizards. There's tons of them here in this state. So I could see that being a very easily adaptable, and you can go anywhere and still eat. Crayfish are everywhere. So a species that feeds primarily off of crayfish could go anywhere where there's water and survive. Good observation, Ben. I'm wondering too about that, Autumn. I was wondering why they have a red mouth, the food. That's what I'm assuming, because the woman that I spoke to, whose grandfather, well, she was from Turkey, but her grandfather was supposedly a tegu. He had red skin from all of the crayfish that he ate, because he ate the crayfish. She described her grandfather as being a cryptid man, normal size, maybe a little on the short side. She was a bit on the short side. She was about 5'2", and I think she said her grandfather was about 5'6", but red skinned, and he ate his meals whole and alive, crayfish, shell and all, and he did have full documentation of his diet. Doctors in Turkey treated him for keratin poisoning, creatine poisoning, the poisoning from the shells and the iodine in the crayfish is what caused his skin to turn red and his bones to turn red. His son, who was, half regular Turkish person and then, Tegu father, still came out looking human, lost his red skin, had a normal diet, but Gramps never changed his diet, so he always had red skin. And then the granddaughter, which is the person I met, she still had the fused bones in her back like her grandfather. She didn't have the skin discoloration, and everything more or less was normal about her, except some of her hair pattern was a little bit different. And she had the two fused bones in her lower back like her father and her grandfather. And that's kind of where I came up with the idea that, these and Guanch, my adopted father, explained to me that the Gugwe have a fused set of bones. He also let me know that the Guanch and Oma also have the two fused bones right above their hip bracket. So that's a good potential as to why Bigfoot walks at a lean, at an angle. Because if they got a pair of fused vertebrae in their back right above their hip bracket that doesn't allow them to stand fully upright, they're going to be bent a little bit because their bones just won't let them stand completely upright. That is one genetic difference that I'm aware of that is potentially bone related. And the other potential that I'm aware of, other than the obvious, the more primate body structure, etc., the furry bodies overall, is the talus bone in their ankle is not square. There's simply way too much flex in their foot. They've got their plantars tendons that run the foot front to back, and side to side gives it a twist like a hand. So my guess is their talus bone is probably triangular and not square, because all primates that have a very flexible foot, just all of them, have a triangular talus bone in their ankle. So those are two major bone differences: the two fused bones in the back and the potentially triangular talus bone in the ankle. Ben, maybe some survivalists could show how to eat one without cooking. Yeah, the easiest way to eat one is you pop the head off, you twist the tail, pull the entrails out, you peel it front to back, and then you can just eat it. Uh, but, it's better cooked. And the reason why you snap the tail is because eating eating the entrails in the critters, that's all of their dung. It's really nasty tasting, so it's the easiest way to clean them is you just pop the tail free and twist a little bit and it pulls all that out. Okay, World Bigfoot Central. Crayfish are fresh water lobsters. We have them around here in rivers at least up to 4,000 feet in altitude. Yeah, yeah, they have a wide range of survival. You know, they height. You get more of them the higher up you get until you get to a certain point. But they are very prolific in almost every waterway, and some of them get really big in this area. Like there's one creek south here around London Lake area, or around London, Oregon, Cottage Grove Lake area. Crayfish get like 7-8 inches in that one of those little side creeks. It's crazy how large they get in that one creek. And they're larger than most of the others that I've seen in the area coming out of that particular creek. But that's a creek that goes uphill. It has a lot of snow runoff that comes through it. And it's all up on logging roads that are all blocked off. You can't go up there. They're controlled federal lands. They're pretty well clear cut on the western side of the hills. But that particular stream is really, really cold. And for some reason, it's got huge crawdads in it. Excuse me. Yeah, it is huge crayfish. And normally, like in the little ponds and most of the lowland creeks, you don't ever see a crayfish over about 5 or 6 inches. But you get up higher, and you get further into southern Oregon or central Oregon, you get some big ones. Okay, World of Bigfoot, whatever they say, you can't go there. I take it as a challenge. Yeah, I hear you. So I'm sitting in about an hour. I just kind of wanted to fill you guys in on that. Didn't really get much of anything other than the one structure that looks very promising. And, a few little older tracks, potentials. So it will be the side tour. There's another pathway going into that area. I still have to find the connector route because they're also getting ready to, the park system is getting ready to put in another like 2.5 or 3 miles of connector trailing that go between the Eastern Trail system and the Western Trail system. I think they're hooking it up this summer. So there should be a heck of a lot more to explore. And I'll keep you updated on when they get that through. It's supposed to be this summer. They said it would be done around October 15th of 2025, and they're starting it in March, I think March 31st or something like that. So they're going to be pushing more trail through there. That should open up a lot more stuff too, because they're going through territory that hasn't been logged or messed with or has any kind of trail or anything through it now. They're connecting old trail systems that have not been connected before. So that should open up some really interesting stuff on those trail systems potentially. Be interesting to see what's up in those regions. Because until now it's all been governmentally run and just left fallow. A lot of it's old pioneer lands that have just been, either taken because of taxes or nobody claimed them, or they've been handed over to the state for care. And they finally just decided in this region that they'll go ahead and put in more hiking trails. What they're going to do with that leftover land, so to speak, maybe bring some income for, managing it. Okay, mermaid. I was speaking with a Native American from Maine who told me that the Bigfoot eat a lot of mussels, snails, and clams, almost anything they can harvest on ocean beaches and rocks at low tide, and bull kelp. Yep, that's very true. I've also seen them take oysters off of rocks at really low tide too. That happens a lot up around the Puget Sound area, and mussels, clams, all that. Very, very common food source for them. They take a lot of small stuff, take a lot of small rodents, birds. There's a ton of that stuff going on. And then you get, the bigger game hunters that supply meat too for like local tribes, local clans, and local family groups. But it seems like they've got kind of a schedule of appointments, as it were. So I've got to map that out too. That'll be able to do with the trail talk that's up on this one pathway, just a couple blocks behind where I'm at. Because it looks like they set that information down pretty regularly and pick it back up. Because, over the course of a week, I saw like 3 or 4 different groups in the area all laying down different kinds of trail talk and then pulling it back up. One group was from the Cedar Eagle clans or tribes from the east of here, Central Oregon. There were dog people that came in. That was one of the last ones that came in. There was another group that had urine in it, and kind of a nondescript group that came in, and they might have been passing through because they didn't lay down a lot of trail sign, but they definitely stopped to do some hunting there with permission. So, that particular pathway and the trail talk on it seems to be pretty regular. So hopefully over the next few months I'll be able to map a lot of that, document it, and I might be able to actually pull enough of that together to have a section for the book. Maybe I can actually go into trail talk. Having enough examples of it would really help that out. That's part of what I'm doing this summer, is trying to help map out more material for the book that's in the progress, be it structures or Kana, Kanji, or trail talk, or anything else that I can pull together that's viable. Any tools that I can find, anything like that. So hopefully I'll find some cool shit. And I do need to go back down. Here soon I want to go back down to Cottage Grove Lake, take a look around that area, because the water should be pretty high at this point. Things have a tendency to change during the winter down there quite a bit. Different groups seem to come through during different parts of the season. Middle of December, 1st of January, there's a group that comes in that I really want to go down and see if I can find any evidence of, because they come in on a raft, and it's usually a big one. They lash 5 logs, 1, 2, 3, 4, usually 5 or 6 logs. They'll make a big square, and it'll either be straight piece in the middle, or they'll do a cross. I've seen it 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years or so. I would like to go back down and see if that raft has shown up, because if that raft has shown up, uh, those are, I think, skackum that are coming in because of the behavior that they have, some of the stuff they do. They use a lot of pigments, and they collect certain things from that north end of the lake, and I would really love to be able to record that sort of thing and give an idea of what that group does, because I know there are several groups that interact around that particular lake. They utilize that lake as a resource. They gather different things in the marshes around that lake, and they definitely fish that lake a lot. Several different groups fish that lake, actually. In fact, that one little fishing hut structure was from Cottage Grove Lake area on the north side. That, and I want to get into where the Badger people potentially are at. It's a trail system that goes through, so I'm going to have to either park at the boat ramp and walk back down into that area, or I'm going to have to find a spot to park and then walk back up through it and over to the boat ramp because it's a couple miles. Just to get a look into that back area behind the dam, because I've seen a lot of Kana back in there, and on the few little foyers I've gone through. So there's something back there that speaks pretty well because they lay down a ton of Kana in that area, and it's all very Japanese looking in the language structure. So you should be able to get some really good examples there. And then on the western side of that entire lake, there's probably eighth to a quarter mile of pathway that gets a ton of Kana and trail talk laid down on it all throughout the spring and summertime. And it gets so thick in there. I've got to record a bunch of that. That should give a lot of language information. And that should help build a good lexicon of words or phrases potentially. And I only discovered that a couple of seasons ago, and I haven't been able to get down there too regularly to map it, but I've got a real good idea of when it becomes prevalent and then when it disappears, because I've been able to do that much so far. Okay, let's see. Ben, interesting that you found urine evidence along the trail language, among the trail language. I think you said they had come down from the mountains to hunt. Yeah, there's there's a group of Yaren, a rather large group of Yaren over in central Oregon, actually kind of close to where my brother lives. And they seem to have a trade route that runs across that particular mountain range and over to the Willamette Valley. I know the hilltop they like to trade on because I'm always seeing, when I go up there, I'm always seeing particular markers that indicate, that they're trading and that's their major point at which they arrive to disperse throughout the valley. And they have a couple of runner trails. One goes more north, one goes south, and one goes almost due west. So I know it's hey, we're coming out, we're doing our trade, this is our collect point, we're gonna recce back here, and then we're gonna go home. So there's usually no less than 3 runners that come from Central Oregon, and they're probably bringing stuff to trade as well as taking stuff back. And there is south of here, below Cottage Grove Lake, there's another location where I've discovered that there are runners that come from the coast and come over that, the Cascade Range, and also run supplies because I found a couple of years ago, I found half a sea cucumber sitting in the middle of the woods, bitten in half. No reason for a sea cucumber to be here in the valley, and it was fresh. It was only like a day old. It wasn't decayed or anything. It was still malleable a whole bit. I've also found saltwater clams, good sized ones, 4 to 6 inches in diameter, shells of here, something a bird's not going to carry here, and crabs with shells that are like 6 to 8 inches in diameter. All coastal stuff, and all out in the middle of the woods where it should not flip and be. And not just one, like the crabs, there was probably 20 or 30 crabs in the pile, just shelled out. Yeah. So that's a lot of stuff to be carried across, and it's all fresh. The clams, I think it was 6, 8 clams that I found in one area alone. I've also found up in the Umpqua forest, I found oyster shells, and not small oysters, oysters that are like 6, 8 inches long and 4 or 5 inches across. So they're being collected from either further north or out pretty deep. Uh, Oyster shells, freshly hucked in the middle of the flippin' woods next to a river. Shouldn't have been there. Probably 6 or 8 of them, if I remember right. And too big and too many for a bird to have brought in. So it's when I find bizarre stuff like that, I know there's something going on trade wise. You know, they got to be carrying this product. It has to be traded product, or something that they are owing each other in some way. So that's always peculiar to find. And then when I started comparing the eastern trade route and the southern trade route to the coast, both of them turn out to be old Native American trade routes. Both the locations that I've noticed the Sabe on, those are both old Native American trade routes that haven't been used for 150 years. And because we stopped living here and got put on reses and we haven't used them, but the Bigfoot people, the Sabe, those different tribes, the Yeren, the Skakam, the Oma, Guanch, they all still use them. The Ishka too. They all still use the old tribal trade systems and their routes. So they've never stopped living the way we always lived. Probably because you really can't force them to live your way. What are you going to do? Yeah, yeah, very true. Wow, trailheads connected. That's crazy. Manned territory, no man's land. Yep, pretty much. Autumn. World of Bigfoot, and same report, coastal Oregon and Washington. I can believe that. Yeah, those sorts of food sources. I've seen that sort of thing all the way from like the redwoods in California, all the way up into British Columbia. I was on Vancouver Island for a while, and I still saw the same peculiar, sea life in the wrong place in the woods. Oysters out in the middle of the deep forest. What the heck? Shouldn't be here. So, if other people are also finding the same kind of thing, that's awesome, because it kind of suggests that they still trade with each other, and they still carry goods for great distances. But then, if you're physically able to run 50 miles an hour, going 60 miles on a day trip, if you can run it, it's like an hour and 20 minutes. You run over, you grab a bunch of stuff from somebody else who's already picked it up for you, has already hunted it, has already trapped it or whatever, and you run back. You might do that a couple times a week. That's the way Native Americans used to do stuff when we still lived that way. Native Americans, well, South Americans, and they're, to me, anything on this continent side, I don't care if you're in Canada, South America, whatever, we're all still native, we're still indigenous people here. And we had trail systems. We had trail systems that we ran. We had trail systems that we used stone sleds on that transported goods. We had a major systems across the United States for goods transport. And some of them only took a day or two to get there because of the way we utilized stuff. Either we ran and handed it off, or we had a sled system that a matter of a few hours, and you could have tons of stuff delivered from one end of the continent to the other just because the sleds were running all the time, so to speak. They were all gravity built. The sleds in South America all worked on rise difference and slide capacity downhill and weight and ratio. So as long as it didn't get derailed off of one of the routes, because it was stone sled on a stone road, unless you got derailed and couldn't get the sled back on, uh, then those goods transports, you just fill them up and send them on. And we had those that ran north-south throughout the lower end of this continent. And at one point, supposedly had some of that stuff here too in North America. But, we also had a lot of runners, people that just ran goods. So why would these indigenous people change that if it's something that's always worked? There's no reason for them to develop anything else that's part of their environment, part of the way they live. I am working with an individual uh, currently, Autumn, on the first book, potentially. at least one book. Hey, XOXO. Hi. Shout out for Brooklyn. It's her birthday. Love your content. Oh, thank you. Uh, um, yes, builders are very smart tribes. They know their territory well. Yeah, that's very true. Ben, the lake sign was great. The little scene like stacking of rocks there. Yeah, there are actually a couple of other little spots this spring that might have that sort of thing going on in it too. I'm going to see if I can catch a couple of those spots. 'Cause some of them get really interesting with what's being depicted in the stones. Very, very peculiar. Oh yeah, and Ben, and the mining of rocks for trade. Yeah, the high iron content stone for putting out fires. Okay, mermaid. That would be something to see. The rafts. Just be very careful, please. To be, to be honest, I know that you have a lot of knowledge, but I'm a little worried about you being in their territories alone. Well, you have to understand, mermaid. I'm not in their territories alone. I'm actually usually with a ton of other people because pretty much every place I go is in a public area. People hike through these areas all the time. People go boating in these areas. They go fishing in these areas. So I'm not really out of, vocal range for screaming for help if I need to. But I don't. Most of the Sabe in this area, so far, and I've been around them all my life, with the exception of the Gugway that came onto our property, and the exception of the two dogmen that I know of that are hairy, scary bastards in this area. We don't seem to have a lot of dangerous cryptids here, other than maybe that crawler that I ran into, because that was a new one on me. But he's to the east of here. He's out towards, he's before you get to the Umpqua Forest. He was actually in freaking rural neighborhood. So I don't know what his thing is. I don't know exactly where he lives, and I'm not going to go look for him. I'm not interested in running across that thing again. I don't want to be drug off. But for the most part, it seems like everything I'm interacting with is, in areas that public goes all the time. So don't worry too much. All right, it's not like I'm going out in the deep woods and trekking these things like I was doing up in Washington. Uh, that was a completely different perspective. I was also 10 years younger, so I had the ability to do that more so than I do now. Okay, mermaid. If I live nearby, I'd definitely go with you. Is there anyone that you trust enough? I have an interest and courage to take with you. So far, no. Most people aren't interested in going out and walking for half a day just to go walking or babbling, letting me babble. I'm not too worried about it. Most of these territories are, like I said, publicly utilized regularly, and there aren't any cases of missing people. The only case of a missing person is out in the Umpqua that I'm aware of, and that was an individual from several years ago, and evidently they have not found a body. I don't think any cryptids were involved in his disappearance. I'm pretty sure it was because he was, owing money to the wrong person over the wrong thing. Mermaid, do dogmen swim? Yes, they definitely swim. I've even seen the shaman dogman, when he was around in the 80s. The night that my friend took me there to see him, he swam across that little pond and came to growl at us because we were in his territory. And then I went back a couple other times to goof around in that area at night like a dummy. And he came across the pond one more time at me and growled at me in the bushes. So after that, I kind of left him alone, tried to keep more of a distance from him because he was very testy. He didn't like being bothered. I'm not gonna bother something that's scraping 12 foot tall more than a couple times because I don't want to be in pieces. I've been. Did you ever meet Lynn Anderson in Sharp? A former coworker of mine from the Portland, Oregon area. Not that I'm aware of. Lynn. Well, I know a gal named Lynn, but I don't know what her last name is, and I haven't talked to her for, God, since the 80s. Oh, thank you, Autumn, for asking people to hit the like button. Okay, Ben, she was an ecologist specialized in ornithology. No, I don't think I've ever met her, Ben. I guess my tribe had runners across America, Tahoe, New Mexico. Yeah, so you're aware of our old tribal ways, Autumn. That's awesome. And that was very common practice. And we traded goods that way a lot. Okay, World Bigfoot Central. Anyone else? Slavic Bigfoot, account, big accounts. He's putting out a new documentary. Bargaining into new new areas. Anyone? All new Squatch. Oh, cool. Uh, yeah, I can't wait for the book to be finished too. So far, it looks like it's going to shape up to be kind of in 3 or 4 sections, so it'll cover a little bit of everything, hopefully. Oh, Kira. Can you please describe the crawler? Yeah, I'll go back through that. So it was fall 2 years ago? Summer? No, it was during the summer 2 years ago. And 22. No, it was further back than that. 20, excuse me. I'd gone out camping just west of the Umpqua Forest. There's a few campgrounds there that are like, you know, rural campgrounds, but they're right off little towns, townships, and right on the edge of the National Forest. And they're a standard campground. So this thing I actually ran into in a standard campground. And wasn't expecting to find it there. Wasn't expecting to be found by it. So I went into camp for the weekend, and I'd taken my tent and my pup, and we were back on a loop that was rather private in the overall campground. The campground probably had 200 sites in it, and there were maybe 50, 60 people in the campground itself, and they were all pretty well spread out. And I think there were 4 or 5 other people camping on my loop that I was on. And I got woke up in the middle of the night by something poking the side of my little mountain tent, because it was just a kind of a mummy bag sleeper tent, little one that you use for, you know, trail hiking. You know, it's a lightweight little tiny thing. And yeah, I hear it's poking down the side of my tent, and then it pokes my shoulder. And you know, it woke me up before that because I heard it outside the tent. It sounded like a raccoon, kind of had that kind of that raccoons do when they're snorkeling. But I didn't hear more than one thing. You know, I didn't hear more than one creature. And the sounds of its movement weren't matching in my memory for a raccoon. That kind of startled me because, you know, you could tell it was something on 2 feet and crawling, you know, like crawling or a person crawling. And the next thing in my head is, oh, maybe it's a freaking boar. I hope to God it's not a pig. And, you know, there aren't usually in this area, but there have been people that have let boar loose, you know, so every once in a while you get a stray pig somewhere, and they're not fun to be around. They'll chew your leg off before you can get rid of them. And then it started poking the side of the tent. I'm like, okay, well, that rules out raccoon, that rules out boar. And then it poked my shoulder. And that was when my dog started to wake up. She was low growling, and she normally didn't put her, she doesn't normally put her hackles up, but she hackled up really quick that night. And then the next thing I know is this thing's trying to unzip the front of my tent. Two fingers came through, and the zipper cord was being grabbed. Very skinny, pale colored hands with dark, dirty fingernails. They look like they might have had dark coloration, like uh, maybe they were gray in color. It was a full moon. I could see some of what was going on. And there were a few lights in that particular area. I wasn't too far from a bathroom, so the bathroom lights kind of shone across where I was at. So I could see the silhouette outside the tent from that particular angle because of the lights. So I could tell it was a humanoid trying to open my freaking tent. And then the hand, a couple of fingers through. So I flat out told it, because I had a pretty good sized camping knife with me, I flat out told it to leave my zipper alone or I was going to cut it into little tiny bits. At which point it stopped trying to unzip the tent. And then for a good 30, maybe 45 seconds, I could hear it kind of breathing and growling. Like it was pissed off that I'd said that to it. That was disturbing. Actually popped my sheath just in case. And, my dog was she was in my side burrowing, but hanging. She had turned herself, so she was ready to jettison towards it, so I knew she was going to make a move on it if it came through. And then it finally gave up, and it started to crawl away. I let it get about, what I figured was about 15 feet away, and I sat up, turned around, because I hadn't put a night cover on. It was hot, so I left the air vents open, so there was no rain cover on it. So I just poked my head up, pushed the top of the screen up so I could see over my doorway what was freaking crawling away from me, and could very clearly see it, because of the moonlight and the bathroom light, just the other side of the field, that it was a humanoid of some sort, very pale, very skinny, and it looked like it had Achilles tendon damage, like it couldn't stand up, either because of malnutrition or because of damage. I wasn't sure, maybe birth defect. But it had the look of somebody that had no tendons that were working correctly. So it crawled pretty normally with its front hands, its front arms and hands, because it did have hands. And it was more or less bald. It had some hair across it. And it was male because you could see the silhouette of what was going on as it was crawling away. And it looked way too scrawny, way too, the muscle tone was really thin. It looked like it was very much starving to death. And, when I was looking at it, looked back over its shoulder at me, I didn't see any eye glow to it that I noticed anywhere that I remember. But it definitely had a very humanoid looking face, and it didn't impress me as being non-human in any way. It just impressed me as something that was incredibly emaciated, obviously very hungry, and didn't care if its food was kicking or not. And it was about my size, maybe a little bit bigger. So I'm guessing it was right around maybe 140 pounds, 145 pounds, but closer to 5'10" or maybe 6 foot. And that's just from kind of comparing my body size to its body size visually and going, okay, from behind, this is what I look like, or this is what a buddy of mine has looked like crawling away. You goof around with people and you wrestle a lot. You find you notice certain structures with each other. You become familiar with each other's body structure and you see what's going on. So its overall structure just looks like a really scrawny human with really pale skin. I didn't have any tools or anything with it. I didn't have any clothing on. And it just kind of crawled back across the field, crawled past another person's tent, and back up the hillside as far as I could tell. And then I didn't hear it or see it again for the rest of the camping trip because I left the next day. I didn't feel like hanging around for another night. Got my money back. And, I won't be sleeping in a tent in a campground again because that was way too creepy. I mean, I've had my other peculiar encounters when I was younger, but I would say that that one took the cake. I mean, the gugway at the back of the Dodge when I was a kid, that was scary as fuck. But I think this crawler was right there with him. Yeah, it could have been a rake. I don't know enough about different physical descriptions of rakes and crawlers. The only reason why I call it a crawler is because it didn't look like it could stand up. Its bone structure around its knees were very, very knobby. Its heels were very thin and very knobby, and it looked like the Achilles tendon was really tautly stretched. It was accentuated. And where our Achilles tendon looks like it's maybe an inch, inch and a half, its Achilles tendon looked like it was about 3 inches. So instead of having a little narrow, it had this real broad depth to its Achilles, which struck me as peculiar because that's very different body structure for the Achilles tendon anyway. Maybe it was just because it was so scrawny, so it looked accentuated. I don't know. But it's not like anything I've ever seen before. Okay. Okay, Kira, can you please describe the crawler? Yep, just did. Jacob, what are we tracking? Any various cryptids that happen to be out in the woods, Jacob. Normally I stick to the Sabe, ones that are friendly. Oma, Guanch, Skakum, Yaren, Ishka. Other than that, I try to stay away from the other ones. Then, I can vouch for what I said that there was trail sign on public trails around here. Really see it hiding in plain sight. Yeah, without knowing what is being taught here, you'd probably never see it. Also very true, Ben. Mermaid. I watch a channel called Fred from Alaska. Have you watched his videos? I've seen a couple of them. I think you find them interesting. He tells the stories that are shared with him by the native local people in his area. Yep. Yeah, I remember that about his channel. I haven't run across him a lot, but I have seen a few of his pieces. Autumn. Would you have scared... that would have scared the crap out of me. Hands coming in, opening your tent, and Matt growls like a rake. Yeah, it scared the crap out of me. But I would... And I thought there for a second it might come through my tent because it hung around too long growling at me. And that made me think, crap, I might actually have to defend myself against that. I don't want to, but I'm going to stab the living hell out of it if it does. Because, I'm up for defending myself, and I don't care what I have to defend myself against. I'll do it. Mermaid. Sorry, Fred's channel is called Subarctic Alaska Squatch. Sasquatch. Oh, cool. I'll look him up and make sure I actually subscribe. Jesse. Why are dogs reported being offered by these beings, ma'am? Oft? Oh, oft. Well, commonly dogs will get their backs broken, and it's usually because they've bitten a child. That was the incident that was occurring when I smacked the coyote down in the sequoias. So I was like 6, I think I was. My native grandmother had pointed us to a couple of locations in the sequoias that she wanted us to go visit, people that she wanted us to meet, and locations that she wanted us to go to see some other unusual cryptids at, and gave us a couple of places we should, pay attention to and stay near because, there'd be good Sabe in the area. And the second day into the sequoias, we stopped in an area that we knew had good Sabe in it because my grandmother had said, "Yeah, all this territory belongs to Skookum tribal people. It's all good place to be. Don't go further east and don't go further west, but you can be in this area and you'll be all right." Well, the second day we stopped at a little, like, just off the road because it's all national forest. It wasn't much of a campsite. It was right over a little bridge, and there's a stream that was maybe 10, 15 feet wide, a couple of feet deep. Lots of crawdads in it. And a nice open area, a couple of hillsides, one on either side. And we stopped mid-afternoon. Mom starts to make camp. I ask my mom if I can go upstream and I can take a look around. I get maybe 60 feet away from camp and I notice a boy calling out. And he's screaming. And I see what my mind translates at 6, a big dog biting a kid. So I grab a stick, because I'm not unused to domestic dogs. I've been around domestic dogs all my life. So I run up and I hit this dog, or what I think is a dog, that's biting this kid. Looked like a little red-headed boy to me, auburn-haired boy. And I didn't realize I was hitting a coyote that had a hold of a skookum boy. He had ripped through his forearm pretty good on the right side. Well, about the time I got the dog off of him, because I hit the coyote pretty good with the stick I had, I'm realizing, I now have a coyote that's growling at me, 4 foot away, gonna eat me, so I put myself between the boy, who was a little bit shorter than I. He, to me, looked like he was maybe 4 years of age. A few years difference. At least that's how my brain translated it. And I'm standing there with a stick and screaming for my mom, because I didn't know who else to scream for in the event of freaking coyote attack. And me screaming, the kid screaming, here comes Mama Skookum. And she was about 8 foot, maybe 8.5 feet tall. She comes splashing down across the other hillside. You can hear all the brush breaking. And then, she ran across the little stream, picked up that coyote from in front of me, and broke its back. Broke it at the hips and laid it down, just dropped it, thump. And she's looking at me. I immediately turned to her kid. I dropped the stick because he was bleeding really bad, and I put my hands, pressure on his forearm because he was squirting blood. He wasn't just dripping blood, an artery had been hit, and I knew it. So meanwhile, I'm screaming for my mom, who was showing up. My mom shows up to see the Skookum woman standing to my left, me holding on to her kid. My mom is telling me to let go of the kid. I'm like, no, I can't. He's bleeding. It's squirting. There's an artery here gone wrong. And my mom started, chattering to talking to the Skookum woman, because the Skookum woman was trying to pull me off her kid. She pulled my shoulder a couple times. I kept, away from me, holding on to her son's arm as much as I could. So my mom got that situation calmed down, and she walked up, took a look at the child, talked to the Skookum woman, and all of us walked back to our camp, and my mom doctored the child. So the reason why dogs get off is because they're typically going after young ones. Weird thing is dogs will go after Bigfoot babies, and it doesn't matter if it's a wolf, coyote, or a domestic dog. Once they catch scent, they'll go after them like they go after a mink or a ferret. So it's something about the pheromones. I think it's what's keying the dogs, to attacking the offspring of the Sabe, the Bigfoot people. And I think it's definitely a pheromone-oriented issue, because I had a dog that was very, very good around Caesar, my old dog. This one too, very good around them. Never had an issue. Wouldn't bite them. Wouldn't go after them. Very well trained not to, because I know it will get them killed. Well, Caesar caught scent one day the wrong way, and he was uphill, or we were downhill from an uphill advent of a baby, a newborn, only been around for a couple weeks. And when my dog caught scent of that baby Bigfoot, he tried to go up a 45-degree angle hillside to go after him, and I couldn't get him stopped. I was throwing rocks at him to get my dog stopped, and he wouldn't stop. So I started climbing up after him. I finally got a hold of his tail and his back leg, and I yanked him back down off that fucking hillside. And that way he was already 20, 30 feet up the hillside and just a few feet away from getting to the baby. About the time I got a hold of my dog, Mom swooped in, picked up her baby, and walked on away from us. After that, I had to break him of that. So I went and found out where Bigfoot had gone poo, and I made him scent acquisition. Uh, so when you're teaching an animal, you'll either teach them to hunt or to be afraid of something. And if you're wanting them to scent acquisition, you take them to the dung, you let them smell, and if it's a bigger predator, the first thing that will happen is your animal will whimper, and then they will lay down, because they're terrified out of their brains as to what to do. If you leave them in that state where they won't get back up and go predatory, like they're going to be a hunter, you break them of going after the young ones at that point, because they have the scent acquisition, they know, oh shit, predator, so you reinforce that if you don't want them going after them. So that's what I did with my dog, to get him to not do that again. But I'm pretty sure that what's going on with the dogs is in the stories that I've come across. I've interviewed a couple of people that had their dogs' backs broken. Like I interviewed a guy in Hawaii who had a dog who got his back broken because it went out after something, and he heard the tussle, and then he couldn't find his dog for 2 days. The dog finally came back, dragging her backside because she'd been broken right above the hip bracket. And, it cost him a couple $1,000 to put the dog back together at the local vet. And she lived, and she ended up, having a cart for her backside. But the vet described whatever broke that dog's back had to have grabbed it physically and rotated it, in its hands. Yeah, Roberta, a very close call with that crawler. Okay, Autumn. Main Mermaid, Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot stories from natives also. Yeah, I'm going to have my documentary out this summer by Flash of Beauty at some point. I'll let you guys know when I know. Mermaid, Jesse, I was wondering if it is the same as a rake too. So something like that. As a teenager. Oh wow. It screamed like a woman. It had pointy teeth. Terrifying. Yeah, that was the other thing I noticed. And there have been, in the location where I had the crawler incident, people report screams like that, female screaming. But they don't say it's like a bloody murder scream. It's more like a woman yelling. Is how they describe it. Kira, is there a new creature people are seeing, or are there legends? I don't. My grandmother's legends or my grandmother's lore didn't seem to have crawlers or wraiths, but other tribes do. So part of it might be location and what was more prevalent around in different areas. Sort of like, the Navajo and the Skinwalkers. They're very prevalent in that particular area. If you find them anywhere else, you got a problem. So it might be localized, and certain tribes might have more information on them than others. Okay, mermaid. The one we saw reminded us of a spider. Yeah, the only thing I've ever seen that reminded me of a spider, mermaid, was that funny spider sloth thing that my father told me about, where I find it, and it looked Very weird. Very long, lanky limbs. Its hair went in all directions and looked very spiky, like a tarantula hair. You know, like the furry bodies that tarantulas have. That exoskeleton kind of look. Mishmash hair everywhere. I don't think it was a bug of any kind. I don't think it was that sort of thing, but the look of it was very similar. And I have another drawing I just did of it. I was thinking about putting up a little bit more information about it because it had a few bizarre characteristics to it. It had the teeth that looked like anglerfish teeth, so it had teeth in every direction. It had a very upturned, almost skeletal-looking snout to it. Uh, had a very thick brow ridge, round head, uh, three fingers with claws, 3 toes with claws. Had a really long, accentuated, odd-looking foot that looked almost doggish-like, but not quite. And it was scooting downhill on its rump, so I never got to see it standing or walking in any way. And I think it was maybe 50 yards up the hill when I first noticed it. I tried to get pictures of it. I had managed to, well, I just shot an entire disc full of, or, SD card, excuse me, full of pictures, a couple hundred of them. And I tried to exit out a few and delete a couple. I was going to try to take a couple pictures of the spider sloth thing that was coming down the hillside at me. And then my flipping battery died, so I couldn't get any pictures of it, though I had like 2 or 3 slots available. So when I went back into that area later, I was all clear cut by then. So the cover wasn't there and it wasn't there. So it probably receded back either up over the hillside or back into a cave system because my father said there was a cave system somewhere in that area that it lived in. And that's what he learned when he was a kid, living around the Tule Indian River people for a few months when they were immigrating down from Canada to live here in Oregon. Yeah, I kind of believe you on that one, Autumn. Rakes are crawlers, humanoids, white skin, cave dwellers in the darkness. That really sounds to be the case with the one I ran into. It was obvious either he didn't have any pigmentation or he never saw any sun. Yeah, I golem. Autumn, that's amazing. You rescued a Skookum child and worked with the mama Skookum. Amazing healers, you and your mom. Oh yeah, my mom was really in tune with the world. Really in tune with the world. Jesse, I did that with my pit bulls when I raised them. Oh, yeah, good. Scent acquisition is a good way of training your animals. Really impresses them quickly as to what's right and what's wrong. Exactly. Teach your animals to save them. Yep. Because that's one of those potential things that could be completely mistaken. People might think that they're leaving a gift when they're breaking an animal and leaving it behind, not being aware that it might be the result of something else. Other kinds of assumptions could be made. And I probably would have made other assumptions if I hadn't have seen it, firsthand. Then I realized, oh, that's going to be a common behavior. That's going to be a normal thing. And then, my mom being able, and my grandmother being able to say, oh, yeah, no, you can't go after them with dogs. They'll kill the dogs. So this is how they'll kill them, and this is why they'll kill them. So, yeah, it was something that was still known in native culture, too. You couldn't go after Sabe with dogs. You couldn't chase them down with dogs. You had to leave them alone. But we'd use dogs to chase other stuff down. And this little one, she is such a mooch. She will beg off all of the friendly ones, and she'll report on the ones that aren't friendly. So she's really good at that. I don't know if I was a brave child or just too stupid to know better. But, I was acting out of instinct to a degree. And, what I saw was I thought a kid was being bitten. So, yeah, I grew up on a farm. You go take care of business. He might. He might be able to have recognized me because because he turned out to only be like two, I think, two or three. He was almost three. So he'd only be a few years younger than me. He'd still be, what, 57? There's a good chance he'd be alive still. If I could ever get my rear end back down to that part of the Sequoia National Forest, I might be able to find out. Yeah, no, we never camped there again. So it was just, about a week, maybe 8 or 9 days that we stayed there while he was healing up enough to, that we could safely go and he wouldn't rupture his vein again. Because he did rupture his vein again a couple days later. Mom had to actually stitch it back together once again. My mom always carried a suture kit with her. It was just part of what we did on the mink ranch and our farm. If an animal got a severe cut, you don't take it to the vet. You just clean it up and freaking suture it yourself. Because no time to get to a vet in some cases. You got to get in there and pinch off a blood vessel and stitch it back together so it doesn't leak, depending on where the cut is. Well, I don't think Wendigos and rakes are the same thing, Jesse. I think Wendigos are a different creature, another cryptid. And there are a couple of different stories about different variations of Wendigos. There are those that are much like the traditional concept of uh, you don't cut meat on your own lap or on your leg because you'll cut your skin and you might eat your own flesh. And that brings on the possession of the Wendigo spirit. And then there are also stories of dark shamanism where a sort of human cannibalism is practiced as part of a ritual in order to assume the shape of a Wendigo, to become possessed by a Wendigo. Neither one of them I want to do. Thank you very much. But they are in native lore. Okay, Jesse heard from others reported infrared camera keeps Sabe out since apparently it hurts their eyes. Huh. I don't know. Infrared doesn't bother my eyes. And I have functional tapetal lucidum. Jesse, interdimensional beings, these rakes and other cryptids maybe. I don't know. Everything I've run across so far has been a physical creature. Trackable, leaves sign behind, tracks or Kana or Kanji or some other evidence, chewing on sticks, breaking sticks. Everything I've run across so far seems to be physical, with the exception of spiritual stuff. There are a few entities in this particular valley that are supposed to be old shaman that have never died, that supposedly still haunt areas where there are native burial grounds, that sort of thing. And I don't mess with those areas. They've been pointed out to me. So there's the supernatural end of it. But I don't think those are physical, although those supernatural areas, you'll still go missing. You'll still disappear. And you probably have a higher chance of going missing in one of those areas than around cryptids like Bigfoot. Yeah, I've had that issue a couple of times, Jesse, where batteries seem to drain. And then, if you're also dealing with like magnetism in an area or a shifted energy field, your battery might drain pretty quickly in a place like that. I don't know, haven't gone down to the vortex to experiment with that. It didn't have a human-like head, I hope. Yeah, it did have a very human face to it. Kara. Yeah, and that is exactly what's scary about him, Jesse. Oh, Melissa, I hope Steve Isdell will have you on his show sometime soon in the future. Yeah, I just got a hold of his email. I'm gonna have to drop him a line like people suggest and say hi. I need to thank him anyway for reading the email about my channel. Mermaid. We surprised the thing in an old barn on top of a storage container. It was definitely startled and as afraid of us as we were of it. The head was round. It scudded back into the shadow. We ran. Yeah, to be my response too. Jesse, Steve Isdall wants to speak with you. He's an open-minded man. Lets people speak without ridicules. Autumn, I want to learn stuttering. I'm learning different techniques. Survivalist healer. Stuttering. And I'm not sure what that means. Okay, Jesse does prayers. To the Creator help with the bad beings. Natives have said that. Uh, hey, it's okay. No nightmares. You're okay. It's okay. No nightmares. You're alright. Yeah, you're okay, baby girl. Natives have said that prayers help. I've used prayers once. Uh, when I had that really weird encounter with my friend. It was back from Stonehenge, and we got surrounded by something that had a lot of dark energy around it. And definitely felt that prayers helped us get out of there that night. Uh, and lots of natives have utilized prayers. Some of them will also tie tobacco ghosts in the forest that they walk in to keep darker entities out of the area. And that works. I've seen it work. And it doesn't affect good Sabe. It doesn't change the movement pattern of a good Sabe at all, but it does keep bad entities out of an area. Okay, Kira, a human-like head and knows enough English to know what a knife is. Yeah, exactly. That's what really actually got me going about it too. Because after the incident, I realized, oh my God, this fucking thing understood what the hell I was threatening, which put me on a whole new level of what the hell is out there and how goddamn smart are they if they can understand that sort of thing? Could have been my tone, but I don't think so. It huffed and puffed and growled like it was trying to make up its mind. It hung there too long. 45 seconds, 30, 45 seconds, maybe a minute to make up its mind whether or not it was going to come in through the tent door at me. That's way too much time. That's way too much logic, going on in that being. It's sorting stuff out. Not something an animal would do, not something that's reactionary would do. Something that was reactionary would just either laughed or come in. It would have ripped through the tent. But it sat there and huffed and puffed and growled, like it was, one, trying to make its mind up, and two, didn't want to take the risk. Which to me went, oh my God, it really understood what the heck I said to it. That was more startling to me in the long run when I thought about it than just the fact that I might have to deal with it on a physical level. Not something I want to do, but at the same time, if it thinks, that's going to make dealing with it way more difficult because it means it can counter your tactics. If it can think, it can counter your tactics. It means you got a whole new level of ground game there. You're not familiar with what its tactics are. Oh my god. Sorry, Jesse. Didn't mean to scare your cat. Yeah. Thank you, mermaid. Yeah, I like my doggo. She's a good girl. And she's always snugly snoring. They know many languages. I heard you, so yeah. It does seem that a lot of the cryptid people speak either broken forms of languages, composite forms of languages, or straight out different forms. Like the dogmen in this area, they primarily speak Chinese. The Guanche up here, where the Deer Society is going on, they primarily speak Japanese. The Skookum in this area, they speak, I can speak Abenaki to them, but they'll answer me in either English or Urdu, Hindi, which when they answer me in Hindi, I gotta go look up the words because I don't speak Hindi. So I have to take notes. What did I hear? Write it down. Try to get them to respond to me in, English. Sometimes they will, otherwise they're speaking in ancient Hindi. So I have to go look up what the heck they say. But, I can kind of muddle through with the Japanese. I can muddle through with some of the Chinese. Uh, it's it's very interesting the weird combinations of languages. Even when trying to translate some of the Kana, I'll end up with uh, Taiwanese, Cantonese, straight up Pinyin, um, Spanish. Every once in a while, I'll get a word or a phrase that's Spanish in origin. I've pinged on Basque a couple of times. Some of the other language variants that I've come across in the Kana and Kanji, African languages. Every once in a while, I will pop up with an African language or an Arabic language, Turkish Tagalog. So it's really weird. Either they've got a really ancient mixed language, or they have some sort of a composite language that they're utilizing. I don't know. Originally, I thought they might be the origin of languages, like everything was told to me. But some of it also seems like it might be that they've cross-adopted languages potentially. So some of it might be more composite-like. And until we, have some sort of rapport with a group and can actually get some communication out of them, we're not really going to know much about that end of things for a while. At least until some sort of bond can be built and some sort of interaction can be established. Kira. Okay. Jesse, do you think the First Nations people, they have abilities like shaman to do things we list as now you call civilization? Yes. Yeah, there's some things that shamans can do that we no longer practice, that we no longer do. Same can be said for other people around the world, be it Tibetan lamas or people in India, meditation practices, that sort of thing. In older shamanism, that opens up different things within your own energy field that might open up abilities that we don't commonly work with or focus on in modern civilization. We don't have a need to utilize some of those innate traits or abilities. Right on. What's spoken Basque? Well, it was actually the Kana that I found was in Basque, and that was in one of one of the Kanas that I found in Bear Woman's area was in Basque. The phraseology was Basque, um, but I haven't found another example of it. So I was in my old notebooks. That was from a couple of years ago, and I haven't found anything else in this area that popped up with Basque. But who knows? Time will tell. I've just got to keep collecting Kana and Kanji and see what kind of variations I come up with. The majority of it, though, seems to be Asiatic pinyin, mostly Asiatic languages. Rare that I get the other stuff going on, but it does happen. Jesse, Tower of Babel, Bible. Uh, didn't they find the Tower of Babel? Ah, hey Surya, welcome. Glad to see you here from Pakistan. Oh, cool. I would love to learn more cooking skills, definitely. Like done, subscribe, done. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I wonder how many cryptids you have in your countries, because I know Middle East still has a lot of ancient creatures, that live pretty commonly in your areas too, and not unknown or none heard of. So we're sitting at about, wondering how far my battery is going down. I might do another 15 minutes, make it 2.5 hours, and then I'm probably gonna, since it's getting on towards 9:30, I might call it a night and try to get some of those uploads going and get back up into that area where I've been getting language this Wednesday, and see what else I can hopefully get from up there, and just kind of map it to see what time of the month is more active up there, because it seems like the 10-12 days leading up to the full moon seem to be the most active for language up there. So I don't know if it's because they don't have any visitors in the area that they're helping hunt, or um, if something else is going on with them as why they might be more active during that time of the moon cycle. But if I can map that out, maybe I can get in there and get more definite language caught on tape. That I want to check the other ridgeline, because I haven't been over there in a couple of weeks, where I recorded the funny gurgly, growly sound. I really want to get some more recordings of that, because I really want to know what the heck it is. So far I haven't been able to match it to. Haven't been able to match it to bear. Haven't been able to match it to a dog. Haven't been able to match it to kind like a cougar or a bobcat or anything. So it's an odd, and I would like to have more examples of it, because I don't know what it is, and I kind of am curious. What the heck is making that sound? Oh, Jesse, chupacabra in Puerto Rico. I can believe that. I've heard plenty of stories about chupacabra, and I've heard from locals. They know the thing exists. They know it's there. It's no myth to them. And it's something I don't really like about most what you call experts and researchers. They always start at the mythic end, and they actually kind of drop it at the mythic end. Even when they're out there doing their thing, they still don't resolve anything. They don't give you any information. They don't break any molds. They don't give you anything that gives you a hint as to what's going on. They just present the myth and go, "Oh, hey, yeah, blah 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 blah," and then drop you back off at the beginning again. It's like, what transpired in the middle? Nothing. You went in there and you found nothing, so you believe nothing is there. I can walk in the woods for years at a time and probably never see a cougar, but I know they're there. Yeah, and the locals always know. The local people, indigenous people, always know what's in their areas. Not just historically, but present day. Most of them still understand there are certain things in certain areas. If it's, something that grandma or grandpa told you about, or if it's something that's, tribally known or historically known, or something your parents told you about, or your uncle told you about, it's always locally known, though. It's always known by the indigenous people. There's never a point where it isn't known by indigenous people. It's just us that live too much in the city, and we don't know anything. We don't ever get exposed to the information. Is why. Yeah, Jesse, happy holidays. Oh, thank you, Autumn, for doing that. I really appreciate you guys. I'm really glad you guys have been sticking with me on this, because I'm not doing this as I'm not trying to share this information to become famous. I'm not trying to share this information to uh, make money off of it. I'm just wanting, people to understand the kinds of stuff that I was exposed to, the kinds of things I was told indigenously by my native family, and what I can maybe shed a little light on and bring some exposure to, and hopefully preserve some knowledge so that can be passed forward, handed down, preserved. Maybe it can be built on later. Maybe some of it can be, addressed and shoved off to the side because it's irrelevant. But it would be nice to have an avenue, because there aren't many research avenues that show consistency. That's the one thing that's always bugged the bejesus out of me. Looking at all of these shows and looking at every channel, and everybody goes out and does the same thing, expects a different result, but they never get in the field. They never go and look. They never actually seem to get anywhere. Maybe they'll find a structure here or there, maybe they'll get a whoop back, etc., but they don't present you with any evidence, track evidence, or, hand evidence, foraging evidence, what kind of communications do they have. They don't ever get into those details. Maybe it's because they don't know about them. That's a good possibility. Especially since so much of what we think about these people it's modern day mythology. Uh, we don't we don't think about what the natives utilize. We don't even talk to natives about what they know typically. It's becoming more prevalent though now. People are getting more involved in the native lore and the indigenous lore because, well, once you start looking into our indigenous lores from around the world, it all says the same stuff. It never really changes. It's like, oh yeah, we've got these things here, we've got those things there, and these guys over here act like this, those guys over there act like that. No, you gotta avoid them. They eat people. So, indigenous tales and stories are always more accurate than a lot of the things that you come across. And I can't, until I see, something in front of me physically that suggests they go in and out of portals or that they go up into a spaceship or anything like that. It's never been my experience. So until I see it with my own eyes, I'm going to refrain from that end of the spectrum of things because everything that I've experienced has been very tangible, been very physical, and been very much in front of me. Uh, I've and the conversations that I've had with a few cryptids that I've known, they've never talked about walking through portals. They don't talk about going up in spaceships. They do say they meditate. They do say that they are trying to achieve a likeness in some areas, and that it is a meditative practice. But when you're getting into like priests, when you're getting into lamas, when you're getting into the people that practice martial arts and work with their chi, or what you call uh, chi, kai, etc., it depends on which art you are dealing with. They all claim all of these different forms, be it martial arts or meditation forms, even the forms in India claim, you can regulate yourself energy wise and achieve very unique things. You can adjust your aura and achieve very interesting things. So to me, what the Sabe are talking about, what the Bigfoot are talking about, is very much more like that end of spectrum, that kind of energy. They have an understanding of their aura, they have an understanding of history, they have an understanding of their physical being, probably better than we have an understanding of our physical being. So it would stand to reason that they might have different skills because of their culture, potentially, the way they live. Americana first. Yes, I am about one quarter. But I'm Nootka, Oglala, Sioux, and Maya. And the Sioux end of it, we had very fair skin. Some of our tribal people from the Thunderbird side had blonde hair and blue eyes. The Nootka also were fair skinned. They would have blonde hair and green eyes or blue eyes. And they were from Bremerton, Washington area. And then some of the Maya that I come from are actually very fair skinned. So, there are quite a variety of Native Americans, skin tone, facial structure, etc. You just have to be aware of your different tribes. You can't miss it with the profile though. I'm very Sioux with the profile and my flat head, my nose and my head all line up. It's very Sioux Indian. No, I don't belong to a particular tribe because we went renegade in order to keep the knowledge that we had about the Sabe people. We decided not to surrender. So, for 5 generations, we've been not surrendering. I don't know if anybody actually still has this type of lore around. We've kept this lore alive within our family since Elisa's time, since the mid 1830s. 1832 is when she was born. So it's all old lore. It's lore that wasn't destroyed. It's not complete. It's not as complete as what my grandmother knew, for instance. Each generation loses a little bit because you don't always remember everything. But it's lore that hasn't been commonly known. Most of it's been killed off, died out with the people that knew it. I mean, we had a severe reduction in the population of Sioux through the mid 1800s. A lot of us got killed off. In fact, Mayo Clinic, hey, all the original bodies that were utilized to start that clinic were all the dead people, Native Americans from the Little Bighorn fight there. That's where all of those Native people went after they were killed in that battle. They got put on public display as cadavers and had their bodies boiled down so their bones could be used as skeletons to be shipped all over the United States for universities to utilize. So all the lore those people knew went away with them when they died. And that's been the problem throughout this, trying to keep a hold of this lore, trying to keep it alive. When everybody around you is being killed for knowing it, you keep your mouth shut. We only told each other. We didn't talk to anybody about any of this except, other native tribal people. We never talked to white people about it. We never talked to the culture that we lived in about it. We just kept our mouths shut. And the only reason why I'm bringing it forward now is because I don't have anybody to hand it down to. So it's either preserve it or lose it. And I'm not willing to lose it. I would rather give it away. Yeah, true, Cassie. They're chasing their own tails. I'm glad. I'm glad that people are being able to utilize the information that I'm handing out. I mean, once you start realizing what's there and once you see the patterns of behavior, it's pretty easy to pick them out. And you'll see it everywhere. It's literally everywhere in the world. Uh, Mermaid, please know that we really appreciate it. We need to know the truth about our world. Our government seems to know, but they are keeping the information to themselves, and we need to know why too. Yeah, no kidding. I agree with you on that, Mermaid. I think they're keeping the information to themselves because they don't know how to rectify their mistake. So if these people, the cryptids, were actually once on the roll calls as tribal people, and they were removed, and mind you can probably do this unilaterally around the world, you know, you don't want to talk to those people over there. They don't want to become industrialized. They don't want to trade with us, so we're not going to talk to them. There's that sort of thing that's potentially going on too. But if you've got nearly 90% of the planet covered in cryptids, and you have a government that wants to control everything, and they can't control 90% of it, their ego's going to have a heck of a problem with that. And they're definitely going to squelch any information that they have control over in the regular civil, you know, us population. They're going to turn that 90% into the biggest piece of mythology that ever existed just to keep it out of our minds. You know, it's a big smoke screen right there. Ben, has anyone here besides me gone out and looked for a trail sign as described here, feeling kind of alone on this? Evidence is out there to be found. Actually, Ben, several people have done that and are currently doing that, and they are subscribers. And occasionally I get emails from them, and they're having success. They're having success with Kana, they're having success looking for the same sorts of evidence, and recently a couple of people have started posting. You know, they put up their own YouTube channels, and they're, for entertainment purposes only, posting very similar things that they've found, and they're utilizing the kinds of information I'm putting out. So yes, you're not alone, Ben. Not alone. And I'm sure you will be hearing more from them as well soon, because I think their channels might take off. A couple of them have got some really good, very good uh, videos up so far, and they're just starting out, so they're doing really good jobs. Okay, Kara. Well, it worked. Now people think it's a dog-looking creature. Originally, it wasn't at all described. More like a very old, reports of a Jersey Devil kind of kangaroo-like body with quills that go down, back, and yeah, Kira, there are some critters out there that do have quills, that are, you know, there's some descriptions of the chupacabra have quills, and some of them are more lizard-like. It just depends on what region in South America you get the stories from. And then back east, there are several different kinds of descriptions of stuff around the Jersey Devil area that have quills that don't make sense. You know, one of them was a Mothman that supposedly had quills. Peculiar. But I know that there's a mole man up here that has quills. And I know back east there are reports of porcupine-like people that have quills that are rather humanoid-like. So there are some really archaic life forms that may be like that and have quills, and they might have a variety of different appearances, probably because they're different races or species. See, the other is we don't understand how many species of these things are out there. My grandmother's legends and lore told of hundreds of different kinds of creatures. Hundreds. So did my Uncle Long. So, with us thinking there's one creature out there, or maybe creatures, we're just top layer of that icing there. There's a ton more of other things out there. Lots of different kinds of cryptids. Most of them are mostly friendly, otherwise we'd have severe problems. Some are not, some are incredibly dangerous. Jesse, believe in the people, not the government. They are the reason why chaos is king. Listen to each other and take from it or leave it. Yes, very true, Jesse. Very, very true words. Good advice. Kira, tiny arms with Tyrannosaurus and hopping on two legs, 2 to 3 foot tall. Huh. Yeah, there have been some peculiar catches on cameras of very ancient looking, or what you call historic creatures, things that should be died off by now but aren't. But we keep catching them on cameras, ring bell door cameras and crap like that, catch them. And security cameras pointing out in people's yards or down people's driveways. We catch all kinds of weird stuff. That and just, recording inside our own homes. Sometimes we'll catch really bizarre stuff in our own homes. So, there's probably way more out there in the world than we realize. My parents always claimed that there isn't anything there that isn't there during the night, and there is no such thing as mythology. Mythology and fairy tales are actually real. It's just your attitude about them, is the way my parents put it. So the more I try to dig into this stuff and the more I look at it, the more solid that sort of thought becomes, because it just seems, with all the reports from around the world, from various people of various things that are found, in Japan or in the Mideast or in South America or in the islands or over in Java, etc., all of them match local indigenous lore. Once there's a picture, locals can say, oh yeah, that's a Marangapi, I know what that is, or that's a Wachugi, I know what that is, so that the locals can identify them. Now, that should say something. If you can't identify them because you've never been exposed to them, that's understandable. But when you start finding populations of people, or just indigenous people that go, oh yeah, no, I know what that is, that means it's still alive in their culture. They still have an understanding within their culture of what those creatures are. So they're not mythology to them at all. They're just another living creature. Well, you can't put yourselves at fault for what the governments have been trying to take from you. The governments in big industry for the last 400 or 500 years, the only thing they've done is created war, disharmony, and destruction. And along with that, they've buried a lot of information, they've stolen a lot of information, and they've hidden a lot of information. So they wipe out an indigenous culture just to get rid of the stories in some areas. It's kind of like a witch craze, except worse, because it's still going on. It shouldn't be going on anymore. We're supposedly too advanced and too modern. But what do you hear about? Big industry goes into an area and completely wipes out a local. Some industries will genocide an area of people just so they can get to the mineral rights. Or chase people out of an area, chase even modern people out of cities just to get to the mineral rights. So to me, they don't care. Don't care about history. Don't care about anything except what they can line their pocket with. And that being the case, they aren't going to preserve. They aren't going to preserve any lore. They aren't going to preserve the land. They're not going to preserve a dang thing. If they can't make money off of it, they don't care. They're not going to preserve it. So it's not modern man's fault that they don't know. It's the industrialization that's caused that to occur. So it's the way we have chosen to industrialize, and the power that we've handed over through the process of industrialization. It's no longer you, the small farmer, going out and making your tools. You got to go buy them from somebody who makes them overseas, because that's how industry works. So industry disruptions occur to their product flow. They don't want anything in their consciousness that counters any thoughts of what might be going on, or what they might have to take responsibility for. They'd rather just ignore that stuff. It's just the way they always have been. Okay, Josie. It needs to be brought up to people, up to us, the people, not the government. We will let others know. Yeah, very true. Okay, 69 million to 99 million Indians genocided like the buffaloes. Yeah, yeah, very true. I mean, we had a severe reduction here on the West Coast alone in the space of a very short time, 10 years. We went from several thousand tribes and, uh, you know, on the official books it said, what, 167,000 tribal people. My native grandmother claimed it was more like 3.1 million tribal people here on the West Coast, to like 1,600. And that was between 1838 and 1848. That's 90% plus reduction, 97% reduction. If you take it from the big number to the little number, it's a huge reduction. You know, no lore is going to survive that level of destruction. Those tribes that were left, and the tribal people that were left, 16,000 is just a drop in the bucket. And those people, their lore, unless somebody's still alive today, their lore is gone too. It died with them. So that's how you can take a look at numbers and why you don't have the lore, because genocide really destroys more than just people. It destroys history, it destroys culture, it destroys knowledge. Oh, really? Mermaid. Porcupine men are here in Maine. Wow, I didn't know that. I know that they were back east. I didn't know they were that far north. It's really cool to know that. Because they were part of the people my grandmother spoke of. They were one of the life forms that she talked about. She had stories of them. I've heard that Pukogji have quills, but I haven't looked into them. I really need to. Okay, Lauren, glad to see you have a moderator. Yeah, I finally figured out the buttons. Thank God. Sorry it took me a while to figure it out. I'm glad that I did. Oh, thank you, Jesse. I'm glad that you enjoy this channel. Oh, Tina, cool. I hope you post that stuff, about the orbs. The orbs I've caught on phone, home, video are incredible. The more we can share this sort of information forthright with each other, just letting each other know what's in our neighborhoods, letting each other know what's in our regions. It's more than what the government's doing for us. And it's freedom of speech. We have the right to share information still, thank God. So let's do it while we can. Because if we can start sharing local information with each other across the board, you can't shut it off unless you shut the internet off. Yes, Tina, I'd agree. Folklore is very real. Autumn, Lauren, thank you. You're here to help. Always to keep focused and tell her teachings without the spam. We truly love her. Thank you, Lauren. It's great. She needs you. Needs you. Yeah, I know. There've been a lot of trolls on my channel, and they've been trying to be disruptive. It aggravated me that they were picking on you guys, though, more than I don't care if they pick on me. They can go scram up a tree. It doesn't bother me. But at the same time, it makes an unfriendly place for people to come and hang out and chat. So you need to go the heck away. Jesse, mythology is a guide to what ancients experienced, not a tale. Very true. Very, very well said. Not all people who saw something all over the world have seen. Also true. And That time, no cell phone, TV, internet, or video was there to write, to record. Yeah, so they had their stories, their traditions, and their lores to talk about these things. But now we can go out and document them. Mermaid, almost forgot. I tried to reply to you about the porcupine man on our land, but my comments were deleted. I've been having problems with that. I'm not sure what's going on. Some people are getting caught in feeds that are I don't know. I don't know if it's YouTube or if it's that I had to deal with some turkeys on my channel and threads got tangled with each other's comments. Um, I'm sorry. Uh, didn't mean for that to happen. Oh, okay. Yeah. Black with gray quills. Almost looks striped. That's the same descriptions that my native grandmother gave of the porcupine people mermaid. They had the black quills with gray striping, just like a regular porcupine for the most part, except they're people shaped. Well, looks like I'm getting to a point where my phone is starting to lose charge. Let me get to the last of these little. Uh, oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that, mermaid. I still do. Okay. Lenape tribe. Oh, yeah, Lenapes have a lot of good stories about unusual things. Okay, World of Bigfoot. The greatest cover-up in history is the cover-up of history. Yeah, no kidding. Got that one on the head. Hey, who? How you doing? Taco Bello's mom. Thank you for trying to figure out how to leave a like. Okay, Tina, I can email them to you. Is your email on the website? Yeah, it's northwestnativetracker at gmail.com. All lowercase. Or yahoo.com, excuse me. Yahoo.com. And it's on my about information. I've heard when my dad was in the South Pacific, he said there was a lot of unusual stuff like that, Jesse. Orbs I've seen even here in the Philadelphia area and Puerto Rico, especially at graves. Yeah, there was all during World War II. There was what they call the Foo Fighters. Orbs that would follow aircraft, orbs that would be seen over the ocean, orbs, every fucking where. My dad had a lot of encounters with them throughout the South Pacific, especially over the water when they were in the Indian Ocean. The ship that they were on was followed for 3 days by giant orange orbs that were about 3-4 feet in diameter, for instance. So, I think those are a phenomenon from all over the world. Definitely, Tina. Keep your vibes positive and alert, too. Definitely. It's YouTube. Oh, okay. I was wondering if it was YouTube that was having the issue. Because I noticed they just did an AI update, and it seems like they kind of goofed their site up pretty bad doing that. Okay, who? Main mermaid. Oh, gotcha. You guys are talking. Oh, yeah. Mermaid. It's definitely YouTube removing my comments. I can believe that. They they get weird that way. Oh, cool, Tina. I'm glad you found my email info. Sorry, who? I didn't mean to make you insomniac. Autumn. Yes, B2. Okay, that's mermaid. Uh, wow. All right, have a good night, Tina. Yeah, YouTube screening. Hey, baby, you're okay. You dreaming again? Well, wow, I went way past what I was thinking I was going to do here. Well, anyway, I probably should get off of here before my phone completely dies. I've got to try to do some uploads. Uh, maybe get one or two of them up tonight before I head off to bed. Maybe the other one tomorrow. And then, like I said, Wednesday I'm going to try to go back up to where I've been getting the voice recordings, see if I can hang in that area a little longer instead of just walking through it. It's been very peculiar up there. I get... It's almost like I'm being too intrusive. So I'm trying to get them used to the fact that I'm coming up there. Because it seems like they'll be more interactive on some days, and other days they just want me out of there, like I'm in the flippin' way, which makes sense. But at the same time, I really want to hang up there so I can get better recordings. Oh, dang. Yeah, I understand who. Uh, yeah, I usually have to make space on my phone so I can do a live and then make sure I've got enough charge on it to actually go for a distance. Have a good one, Jesse. Oh, yeah, you're welcome. So, might do something on Christmas. Just depends. It'll probably be a last minute thing if I do. Because I do want to try to get uh, a good walk in that day. I think I want to go uphill. Because I have a feeling where I found that little structure off to the side of the road, there's most likely going to be some more stuff up top. Seems like the higher I go in these hill ranges, the more little structures I find. So if it's not down around a lake area, it's up, 11, 12, 10, 11, 1200-foot level. I start finding some good structures. So hopefully I'll have some more of that soon. Anyway, guys, I'm so glad that you attended tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging tough. I'm glad that you do. I'm glad that you don't like wool over your eyes. And yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a great holiday season as well. Because I know y'all have a little different beliefs and perspectives on things, so we're all just people. We're all just hanging out. It's a good thing. Yeah, and I'll email Isdal tomorrow. Now that I've got his email, I'm going to take advantage of that, say hey, and see what he wants to do, if anything. Anywho, you guys have been. I'll probably have a show next Sunday. Other than that, probably see you on Wednesday, Christmas, unless I get tangled up with something. You guys are great. I really appreciate you, and thank you for all the well wishes for the holidays. And yeah, yay! I love you guys, and I hope I can bring you some more good stuff. Anyhow, take care. Thank you for everything. Thank you, Autumn, for being a moderator. Really appreciate your help. Sorry I kind of sprung it on you, but you asked for it. You've done a wonderful job tonight. Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.